Most people think drowning looks violent. Movies trained everyone to expect screaming, splashing, someone throwing their arms into the air, begging to be saved. Real drowning usually looks nothing like that. In real life, it can happen a few feet away from other people without anyone realizing what's happening until it's already over. The first thing the body does in deep water is fight for position, not dramatically, quietly. The arms instinctively press downward against the surface, trying to force the mouth high enough to grab another breath. The movements don't look urgent from a distance. Sometimes they barely look unusual at all. That's part of what makes drowning so dangerous. People imagine chaos. Most of the time, it's silence. The body also prioritizes oxygen over everything else. Talking disappears immediately. Yelling for help requires controlled breathing, and controlled breathing is gone almost instantly once panic fully takes over. Every second becomes mechanical. Up, breath, sink, up again, breath, if possible. Nothing else matters anymore. And then something stranger begins to happen. As carbon dioxide rises in the blood, the body enters a state survivors describe in almost identical ways. The chest burns, thoughts narrow, sound changes. Some people say the world suddenly felt far away, like they were observing everything through glass. Others describe an overwhelming exhaustion, like the brain deciding that fighting was becoming impossible to maintain. Quick pause. If you're into these darker real-world breakdowns, subscribe now. I post new videos constantly, and most people watching still forget to follow before leaving. This is usually the point people misunderstand most. They imagine drowning ends with maximum fear. But many survivors who were rescued before losing consciousness describe something completely different near the end. The panic starts fading, the struggle slows, the body stops reacting with the same urgency it had seconds earlier. People describe warmth, heaviness, a strange calm replacing terror. And from the outside, that calm can look deceptive. Someone who stops splashing may not be recovering. They may simply no longer have the energy to continue resisting. The silence becomes deeper. Movements become smaller. Then, eventually, the body slips under the surface without the dramatic scene people expect. What stays with survivors afterward isn't always the fear. Sometimes it's how fast the mind changed, how quickly survival instinct transformed into acceptance. That's the part many of them struggle to explain afterward because it doesn't sound real until you've heard enough people describe the exact same shift. Drowning doesn't usually announce itself loudly. That's why people miss it. That's why lifeguards are trained to watch for absence instead of noise. A person quietly staring forward with their mouth barely above the water can be far closer to death than someone screaming at the top of their lungs. And once you understand that, pools, beaches, lakes, all of them start feeling slightly different. If this stayed in your head longer than expected, subscribe. Tomorrow's topic gets even darker. One detail almost nobody talks about is how normal drowning can look right before the end. There are cases where people were surrounded by others and still weren't noticed because nothing looked dramatic enough to trigger alarm. No movie moment, no screaming, just someone slowly losing the ability to stay above the surface while everyone nearby assumed they were fine. That quietness is what makes drowning one of the most misunderstood deaths people witness. Pay attention.